Hello and welcome to Opinionated Season 2. In each episode, we'll take a controversial subject, present the arguments for and against, and then discuss what our audience thinks about the matter. This time round, just under 9,000 people answered our survey, which touched on 4 areas: universal basic income, nuclear power, university tuition, and the UK's constitution. We're going to be releasing the episodes throughout May, but that doesn't mean that you have to wait. You can check out the full series on our website right now and watch all of the season immediately. Silver level Patreon backers have automatic access to the full season immediately, so you can either get access through Patreon or just pay $3.99 to watch all 4 episodes ad-free right now. For a little extra, you can also get bonus content and access to the full dataset. More information can be found in the description. The question of whether universities should be free has been one that's plagued politics for a while now. In the UK, during the coalition government between the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats, there was a significant uproar when the Liberal Democrats allegedly reneged on a promise not to raise tuition fees to £9,000. More recently, during the 2019 general election, the issue of the cost of going to university again came into play, with the Labour Party this time round pledging to end the failed free market experiment in higher education, abolish tuition fees, and bring back maintenance grants. Before we dive into the arguments for and against tuition fees, let's briefly take a look at what the UK is currently working with. Well, first things first, the UK currently doesn't have a unified system, with Scotland being a notable outlier with free tuition. So for the sake of this video and simplicity, let's focus on the English system. Universities in England can, at the time of writing, charge a maximum of £9,250 per year in tuition, with additional charges brought into the mix for accommodation and food. Invariably, by 2016, all universities bar one were charging the maximum price for all of their courses. For the vast majority of students, they can get their tuition costs covered by student loans, where the government steps in paying the upfront cost, with the student agreeing to repay the loan over time. Specifically, and again at the time of writing, paying 9% of the proportion of their salary over a set threshold for up to 30 years. So for example, if you're earning £30,000, you're earning £3,425 above the threshold, 9% of which will be £308.25. So you'll pay just under £310 per year or £26 per month. But enough with the idiosyncrasies, let's get down to the arguments. The biggest argument for getting rid of tuition fees consists of social benefits, with the argument going that everyone benefits from more people going to university, and that university is a vital investment in our young people, being known in economic terms as a merit or public good. A more highly educated workforce ultimately means more technical and advanced economy, with innovation at the forefront and social mobility at its core. Regardless of initial background, people can refine their talent and skills, contributing more to society and the economy. Changing the system would not be without its immediate costs though. While it can be argued that most people don't end up paying off their student loans in their entirety anyway, at least 30% of people in the UK do. The Institute for Fiscal Studies put the policy of scrapping tuition fees at a long-term cost of £8 billion when considering partial or complete repayments. The issue is the impact on equality is not what would be expected. In the words of the IFS, as high-earning graduates repay the largest share of their student loans, they benefit most from the removal of tuition fees. The repayments from the highest earning graduates would fall by 67%, from £93,000 to £30,000, while the lowest earning would benefit very little. Regardless, the very notion of a debt still actively deters people from going to university. A report for the Centre of Learning and Life Chances in Knowledge, Economies and Societies and UCL's Institute for Education, concluding that lower class students are still far more likely than students from other social classes to be deterred from planning to enter higher education because of fear of debt. Now, this larger debt doesn't automatically mean that the lower earners are worse off. The same IFS report goes on to say that for most, the new system will entail higher repayments, though the higher repayment threshold means that the lowest earners will actually pay back less. Under the old system, nearly half would have repaid their debt in full by the age of 40. Only a very small fraction, about 5%, will achieve that under the new system. Many would make an argument along the lines that those who benefit should pay up. The issue is, who benefits? If someone goes on to do a medical degree and works for the NHS, we all unquestionably benefit. So who should pay up? The original government white paper from the Department of Business, Innovation and Skills that paved the way for the current system argued that graduates do, on average, earn more than non-graduates, and their higher education is one reason for this. So it's fairer to finance the system by expecting graduates to pay more, if and when they are in better paid jobs. Then comes the economic argument of opportunity cost. The basic economic problem consists of unlimited wants in a world of limited resources. Directly funding tuition for students would inevitably mean diverting funding away from other projects and departments, or increased borrowing. Now the argument here is that because interest rates are so low globally, it isn't as big a concern as it used to be. Actually attaching an outward price to something can also make you value it more, but this too is a double-edged sword. A number of US studies suggest that higher perceived debts can create a reluctance to borrow, increasing the risk of people dropping out as they are debt averse and don't want to borrow more to stay in education. However, US debt levels are typically significantly higher than they are in the UK. Research done by the Lancaster University using data from the Higher Education Statistics Agency finds that increases in tuition fees reduce the average hazard of dropping out by 16% for male and female students, in part as students more likely to drop out don't apply in the first place. That's something supported by a report by the Higher Education Academy that states that contemporary students want and expect more from higher education. Then comes the impacts in quality. A study from the Centre for Global Higher Education shows a dramatic upshift in investment going into the higher education sector since the introduction of fees, and that tuition fees, at least in the English case, supported their goals of increasing quality, quantity and equality in higher education. Finally comes the issue of overqualification, basically the idea that there's too many graduates. Figures from the Office of National Statistics put overqualification at 16% of all of those in employment between 16 and 64, rising to 31% for graduates. In 2015, the Chartered Institute for Personnel and Development reported that 58.8% of graduates are in jobs deemed to be non-graduate roles, claiming overqualification is at saturation point, potentially accelerating the case for an active deterrent from university towards alternative, more technical skills. So, what does our community have to say about all of this? We asked you whether you think the actual cost of university tuition, the teaching bit, should be adjusted, and the vast majority were in support. Just 6.6% thought that the system should remain the exact same as now. Nearly half, 48.4%, believe that university tuition should be free for all. 30.6% called for a reduction, and fewer still advocated for selective support, with university being free for the poorest or best students. Just 3.7% believe that it should be free for the best students. 4.6% for the poorest, and 6.1% for both. For many, however, it's the living costs, notably accommodation, travel and food, that act as the largest barrier to university education. In a 2014 NUS survey, 48% of undergraduates aged between 17 and 20 on their entry into higher education strongly agreed with the statement, "I regularly worry about not having enough money to meet my basic living expenses, such as rent and utility bills," an issue made worse by the removal of maintenance grants in the UK. And again, in a report compiled by Universities UK, when asked, prospective students and undergraduates themselves showed bigger concern for living costs than tuition fees. The vast majority of you agreed that something ought to be done. 2/3, or 66.2%, called for a reduction in living costs, with just 14.3% calling for their complete elimination. There have also been more calls for us to protect certain degrees, or push people towards more technical STEM subjects. Over 3/4, 77.1%, believe that any changes should apply to all subjects, with no special preference towards high-value degrees such as STEM or more vocational courses. Finally, we presented you with some of the arguments for and against getting rid of tuition fees, and here's what you thought about the arguments. 59.3% of you agreed that everyone benefits from more people going to university. 72% said that university is a vital investment in young people. 62.6% agreed that university degrees are important to fill skill gaps. 61% said that free tuition would improve equality in higher education. 64.6% said that university significantly improves the job prospects of those who attend. 74.9% said that university is a significant social benefit. 15.2% said that there aren't enough university spaces available at the moment for those who want to attend. 23.3% said that free education would be too expensive to implement. 12.1% said that the money spent on higher education could be better spent in other areas, like health and defence. 34.8% said that there were already too many graduates that were unable to find employment, and 26.6% said that increasing the number of graduates would reduce the quality of university education. So, what do you think? Do you think that the social benefits outweigh the costs? And is it a moral or ethical issue? Be sure to let us know in the comments down below. If you want to keep watching and find out what our audience thinks about these other topics, then be sure to head over to our website where you can claim access to the full series through Patreon, or just pay to watch the whole series ad-free. Thanks for watching and thanks for supporting TLDR News.